So if you just joined us, we're reading The Loving Search for the Lost Servant by His Divine Grace, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami. And we're reading from the chapter called Planets of Faith. Planets of Faith. And just hang on. Here we are. All right, we left off. This is beautiful illustration of Shukadev Goswami, and he's delivering his thesis, the Bhagavat Purana, to Maharaj Prikit. And if you look closely in the illustration, you can see there's Veda Vyas and Narada Muni and different assembled rishis, the Sanat Kumaras. Everybody's interested in hearing what Shukadev has to say. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj relates. He says, Shukadev Goswami told Parikshit Maharaj that 7 days of longevity is not enough to achieve perfection. He said, is enough. 7 days of longevity is enough to achieve perfection. He said, you have only 7 days left to live. Do you think it is a short time? It is enough time. What is all important is the proper use of every second. What time we have in our hands is uncertain, but we must try our best to properly use every second. This must not be neglected. We should not think, the future is before me. Any time I like, I can engage in the profitable affair of spiritual life. Not 1 second should be lost. Longfellow wrote, trust no future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present. Heart within and God o'erhead. The present is at our hand. We don't know about our future. We must try to use the time at hand to its best advantage. And how will our time be best used? In the association of saints and scriptures. Purity is to be measured by the unit of sacrifice, and not sacrifice to any partial interest, but sacrifice to the whole. So last week we were discussing sacrifice. What does it mean? Because for a lot of people, this is kind of a dirty word, sacrifice. If we think back to, say, the Greeks, Greek mythology. The ancient Greeks understood sacrifice as a way of making life sacred through offering and shared ritual rather than total renunciation. So when the Greeks needed something, victory in battle, a good wave, favorable winds, then they would make sacrifice to the gods to honor them and secure their favor. And oftentimes their sacrifice would be a burnt offering, like a goat or a bull. Of course, there's a story of Iphigenia, who she's the daughter of Agamemnon, who was the leader of the Greeks in the Trojan War. And he wants to sacrifice Iphigenia, his daughter, to appease Artemis, Diana, and to get some favorable winds to go to Troy. So this is the kind of idea that people think of when they remember the idea of sacrifice, perhaps also tainted by some kind of religious, ritualistic sense. So For example, in the Bible, uh, God commands Abraham to sacrifice his son. He says, I want you to take your beloved son, your first son, Isaac, and offer him to me as a burnt offering. And so, of course, it's very different from Krishna consciousness, where Krishna says, if you offer me a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or some water with love, I will accept that uh, as a sacrifice. In the Bhagavad, we have the example of Bali Maharaj, who's supposed to exemplify Atma Nivedana. And Bali Maharaj is kind of an interesting case. His story is mentioned in the 8th canto of Bhagavatam. And he was really the leader of the Asuras. And there's this strange tension throughout the Bhagavad between the Suras and the Asuras. And the Suras are mentioned as the godly people, and Asuras as the demonic people. But if you look at a lot of the different Asuras, they sort of resemble famous people that we may have heard of, dictators, cruel, um, totalitarian warriors like Attila the Hun or Genghis Khan or something like that. So Bali Maharaj was very much in that mode. And he went to war against Indra and decided to conquer the heavens. And when he had the three worlds within his grasp, of course, the dwarf Brahmana avatar of Vishnu, Vamanadev, appears before him and asks for charity. And so Bali Maharaj, because sometimes the ego of a totalitarian dictator includes a certain amount of charity. Uh, they like to become known as important benefactors of society. So Bali Maharaj, he's going to grant Vamanadev's request, but his guru, Shukracharya, he says, don't do that. You don't know who he is. If you give him what he wants, you'll lose everything. And at this point in the Bhagavatam, we're told, well, sometimes it's not necessary to follow absolutely every word of the guru, especially if the guru is giving you some very materialistic advice. And Shukra, it means summon. So he's a seminal acharya. He's not really a divinely inspired guru, but he's telling Bali Maharaj, watch out. As your political advisor, I warn you, you'll lose everything. But somehow, Bali Maharaj, he understands this is Vishnu. It's just God himself appearing before me. I can't deny him. So he offers his own body. And he says, Padam Triyam Kuru Me Shirasi Prabhu. Put your third step upon my head. Because with his first step, he's taken all the upper worlds, and with his second step, he's taken all the lower worlds. There's nothing left to offer. So Bali Maharaj offers himself. And it's strange because he is considered to be uh, emblematic of Atma Nivedanam, or giving himself entirely. But because he was a demon, he's consigned to hell for his surrender. So here's another extreme example of sacrifice. What Srila Sri Maharaj is saying here, he says, purity is to be measured by the unit of sacrifice. So there's the sacrifice of Abram, there's the sacrifice of Bali Maharaj. Different kinds of uh, purity can be measured by different sorts of sacrifice. There's a sacrifice of Agamemnon, who offers his daughter for favorable winds. Um, this sort of ties into many things that Srila Sridhar Maharaj discusses, because he's always pointing out there's gradation everywhere. And so he's taking a look at the gradation in sacrifice, or the gradation in Atma Nivedana, surrender. So, of course, in the present age of Kali, we're told that these traditional forms of sacrifice are no longer practical or effective. Now, you may try to go back to the Vedic age and do an Ashvamedha Jagya or some other important sacrifice, but this is no longer recommended for this age. What's recommended for this age is Sankirtan Jagya, which is the collective chanting of the holy names of Kṛṣṇa. But just to get back to the idea of sacrifice in principle, this is discussed in Bhagavad Gita, where in the third chapter, Krishna says, Purovacha Prajapati Anena Prashavishyadvam. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and gods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them all, saying, Be thou happy by this sacrifice, for it will give you all you want. Bhuvan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantuva parasparam bhavayanta shreya param avyapsayam. And the gods, pleased by your sacrifice, will please you as well. And so, pleasing one another, your own self-interest will flourish. So this word shreya is interesting, because we hear about shreyas and preyas. Preyas means what makes us happy now, and shreya means your ultimate self-interest. So your ultimate self-interest is your spiritual self-interest. There's no difference between really your self-interest and your spiritual self-interest. So this is satisfied by the sacrifice of the holy name of Kṛṣṇa. Or put another way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells us, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahadevagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyuvada Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamitasvadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. That glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. So, if you think about it, the Upanishads also say, Ishavashyamidam sarvam. You don't own anything. You can't own anything. There's a great story by Tolstoy called How Much Land Does a Man Need?, where there's a small-time farmer. He thinks, I need more. So he buys up all the land around his house. Maybe the story took place in Ukraine. There's lots of land in Ukraine. It's very beautiful. Waving yellow wheat fields. And so this man thinks, I need more land. And he hears there's a band of gypsies who are offering black soil land as much as you want, practically for free. And he can't believe this story, but he goes and checks it out, and it's true. And the leader of the gypsy says, yes, it's true. You can have all the land you want. Here's the deal. You set out in a straight line from here as far as you want to walk, and we'll mark your farthest spot. And when you come back, we'll make a square, and all that land is yours. And the man says, really? What's the catch? Well, you have to be back here by sundown. All right. So he begins running as fast as he can out to the horizon so he can gather as much land as possible. And he runs faster and faster and faster. And gradually, he sees the sun beginning to go down and reach the horizon. And he thinks, oh no, I have to run back. And he marks his farthest spot with a little flag. And he comes running back as fast as his legs can carry him, faster, faster, faster. And now the sun is beginning to dip below the horizon. He can just see the band of gypsies uh, far away. And he has to run faster because he'll lose everything if he doesn't make it. Finally, he gets to about 10 paces before where the gypsies are, and he collapses uh, with a heart attack and dies. And so they dig a hole for him and bury him. So the story is called How Much Land Does One Man Need? So, how much land can you take with you at the end? Uh, Really, nothing. You go out in the skin that God gave you, and in a few weeks, that's eaten by worms. So, we strive so hard to own and control so many things, and we think, well, I need this, I need that. My earphone broke, so I can barely hear. I need another one. Okay, so I have to go out and make money so I can buy another thing. But all these different things we have, our glasses, the hair on our head, it's not going to be here. You can't own it. We're told to join so many different subscriptions in order to use Zoom or uh, I don't know, your music service, your email service, all these things. But you can't own anything, you see. So who is the real owner? Well, the Upanishads tell us it's the Supreme. And then, if that's true, if God owns everything, then who are we to try to own something? We're really just borrowing it. And there must be some interest, there must be some giving back. Ishavasham idam sarvam yat kinsha jagat yam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita magrida kashyasvidhanam. Everything animate or inanimate within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota. Should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Nothing belongs to us. What we have by the grace of God. Therefore, we must do sacrifice and give back to the gods and God Himself what sustains us. This is the basic sense of sacrifice as given in the Vedas, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. As Kṛṣṇa says, he says, Evam pravartitam chakram nanu vartayan tinyaya agayur indriyanamo mogam parta sujivati. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a full life of sin, a life full of sin, living only for the satisfaction of the senses. Such a person lives in vain. Now, this idea of sin, you know, this is sort of translated always from Sanskrit, and the Vedic ideas. Bhagavad Gita and Vedas have a slightly different take on the concept of sin. For the Western world, uh, sin is black and hell is hot. It's either or, and you only have one life. But according to the Hindu version, if you like, or the Vaishnava understanding of the world, darkness is the absence of light. So the farther away that you get from light, the more you are in darkness. It's not a black and white situation. There are millions of shades of gray. And in fact, there's also color. By color, we mean the three modes of material nature: sattva, raja, tama, like that, where tama could be very, very deep blue, raja could be red, and uh, sat, satya, sattva, this is bright yellow or bright white light. So there's all these, as Sri Rama points out again and again, there's so much gradation. The idea of pap, or sin, if you like, in the Vedic conception, it has more to do with turning away from God. If God is light and you turn away from him, then you're in darkness. Naturally, you will suffer the consequences of being in darkness. It's not so much a question of follow these rules and be a good boy, and you'll have pie in the sky when you die. It's more a question of, do you want to live an enlightened life, or do you prefer to live in darkness? And it's up to you. It's not that God is sitting on a throne with a terrible swift sword and he's going to strike you down and harm you when you're sinful. This is more of a Western concept, and it has to do with churchiness, or the idea that once we establish the need for sacrifice, gradually there's a tendency in human society to convert this idea of sacrifice into certain sort of codified rituals, meaning that, oh, if I want a good job, I should sacrifice 20 sticks of incense to Lord Buddha, for example. Then the people who sell the incense and the people who have the statue of Buddha inside a house somewhere begin to control uh, the ritual that surrounds that sacrifice. And then, of course, there's a vested interest for them to continue controlling the ritual. And that they'll say, well, the sacrifice lives here in the ritual, and we have the copyright for we own and control the ritual. So if you want the ritual, you have to come and pay us money because we control that. And this sort of descends into Brahmanism or the Catholic Church or different sorts of religious organizations. And when sincere truth seekers see that, they feel cheated and they think, well, I'm not interested in religion. Uh, I've heard about this sacrifice idea, but it seems to me this is tied up with rituals and churches and religions, and I don't want to be a party to that. But here Sri Ramakrishna is telling us, he says, purity is to be measured by the unit of sacrifice. So sacrifice is born within us. If in the age of Kali, the proper sacrifice is to immerse ourselves in the holy name, well, the reason for that is the holy name will purify you. The holy name will lead you into a higher state of purity. It's inevitable because you'll begin to question, well, why am I doing this? Who is Hare? What is Kṛṣṇa? What does all this mean? And that will lead you into the company of sadhus and saints, and that will lead you into the study of scriptures and contemplation. And gradually, your faith should grow. So uh, the idea of sacrifice here. Purity is to be measured by the unit of sacrifice, and not sacrifice to any partial interest, but sacrifice to the whole. When Srila Sri Ramar says partial interest, he means we have our self interest. Self interest is what's good for your soul, what's good for your Atma. What's good for your Atma is to be connected with the Paramatma and Bhagavan, and to do so through the company of saints and sadhus. But insofar as we're ensconced in this material body and can't escape, we see everything through the prism of our own phenomenology, our own perception of the world. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm Italian, I'm Irish, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Mexican. So we think I should serve that interest. And this is what Srila Sridhar Maharaj means by partial self-interest. He says, no, not that. Sacrifice to the whole. The absolute whole has been shown to us as the emporium of rasa, Akila Rasamrita Murti, the absolute good, the autocrat, the designer and destiner of everything we see. So there's these different conceptions of God. You can conceive of God as the all-powerful source of creation, or you can think, I am a living being. There are so many living beings. There must be a supreme living being. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, the Upanishad tells us. Among so many eternal living beings, he's the supreme eternal living being. So this implies sacrifice, it implies giving. If you don't like the word sacrifice, you can think of giving. Our ideal of sacrifice should be so high, Srila Sri Ramakrishna continues in loving search, that we can give up even the corresponding results of sacrifice. This is interesting also. The Puritans, for example, founded the United States of America, and they were very pecunious, saved their money. They were thrifty. They thought, well, we shouldn't be profligate about spending. So their whole thing was work hard and save your money. Well, in the end, they wound up by becoming rich. So you may find yourself becoming rich through your sacrifice. But Srila Sri Ramar says here, don't become attached to that either. Our ideal of sacrifice should be so high that we can give up even the corresponding results of sacrifice. Say you become a preacher. People love your preaching. They say, let's build a temple. They send you money. Pretty soon you have a big bank account. It's not your job to enjoy the bank account. Self-abnegation or self-surrender is generally known as Atmanivedana. However, Atmanikshepa is a stronger word for surrender. So Srila Sri Ramar, she's not satisfied with complete and total Atmanivedana. He says there's something higher than this. Atmanikshepa, it means to throw oneself desperately towards the infinite. And this is a very unusual thing to say or talk about. Most people are not going to try to do that. You can try, and it may be the most dangerous and foolish thing that you've ever done in your lifetime. I remember once there was a young couple that came to me, and they said, Mahayogi, we're newlyweds. We just managed to save enough money to buy a house. And it's our dream to buy a house. But we love what you say about Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Now, for us to go to India together and see Srila Sridhar Maharaj, It's going to cost us a lot of money. Probably it will cost us that house. We won't, if we see Srila Sri Maharaj, we won't be able to buy that house. What do you recommend? And I told them, go to India, see Srila Sri Maharaj. That will change your life. And and they did. I didn't see them for another 30 years, but I was giving a talk in Thailand, and they called into the program and they said, hello, remember us? You told us not to buy that house. You told us to go to India. You told us to take our hard-earned cash, our life's savings that we were going to use to buy a house, our first house as newlyweds. We had a newborn child. And what did you do? You told us to go to India and see Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Well, Mahayogi, let me tell you, that was the best thing we ever did. That was the best advice we ever heard. Thank you. But, it doesn't always work out like that. Be careful. Throw yourself desperately towards the infinite. Pranashish knows what that is. Advai Krishna knows what that is. Tapanandini, she knows. Uh, Su- Suvasini Minakshi Sundaram, she knows what it means to throw herself into the infinite. One must be desperate in self-sacrifice. In self-sacrifice, we must be very careful not to aspire for any greater or extended selfishness. Because here's the thing, you may find that when people see that level of renunciation in you, that level of dedication, they will think, this is an astonishing genius. I want to own you. Can I own you? Can I buy you? Can I seduce you? Can you be mine? Because I like that quality in you. Don't give in. In self sacrifice, we must be very careful not to aspire for any greater or extended selfishness, but to surrender only to the center. Look at photos. I have lots of Facebook friends, and they're always putting up photos of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And you'll notice he may, I think he had one ring. He had a little gold ring with a black pearl in it that was said to be useful for calming the brain. Uh, but apart from that, he has practically nothing. He has the thinnest of cotton dhotis, and that's about all. Barefoot. He's not wearing a fine linen coat or a fine silk turban. He's not wearing a dhoti made of 1,000 count Egyptian cotton. That's it. He has a very fine, practically see through, worn out dhoti that he's wearing, and it's so hot, there's no point in wearing a shirt. This is Srila Sridhar Maharaj, the author of these thoughts. In other words, he practiced what he preached, and he he represented what he thought. It's very difficult to do. You'll see so many others who will say, for example, many different popes in the line of the Catholic Church, they'll say, well, I have to wear a big hat with gold brocade, and I have to drive a special car because if I don't, people won't respect the institution. It's important that you respect the guru, so the guru needs to wear a gold necklace and gold chains and gold bracelets and gold shoes. Because when you see that, you'll think, all right, I respect the gold, I respect the guru. But this was never Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And this is one reason why he captured my heart. One must be desperate in self-sacrifice, he says. In self-sacrifice, we must be very careful not to aspire for any greater or extended selfishness, but to surrender only to the center. Sacrifice is meant for the center, Kṛṣṇa, the all attractor. So there's these different concepts of God. You can think of uh, the creator of the universe, the master of all, the supreme consciousness. But here, Srila Sri Ramakrishna is promoting the Kṛṣṇa conception, the emporium of rasa, Akila Rasamrita Murti. In realizing that position, we're concerned about two things. Now, Srila Sri Ramakrishna begins to unwrap how do we go about self-surrender? What sort of practice do we uh, engage in? We should be concerned about two things: transcendental knowledge, or sambandha, and the means for realizing the goal, abhideya. If we realize these correctly, then the fulfillment of the ultimate goal, prayojana, will come automatically. And of course, there's the Sambandha Guru, uh, Sanatan Goswami, and his teachings, and the Abhideya Guru, who's Rupa Goswami, and the Prayojana Guru, Raghunath Das Goswami, whose birthday we just celebrated a couple of days ago. We should be very conscious about the center to whom we are dedicating everything. The object of our fulfillment and our dedication or purity of purpose, these two things are most important. So the idea is, in developing your bhajan of the Kṛṣṇa mantra, it's important to contemplate the relationship between the soul and divinity as it's laid out by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And at the same time, check your own purity of purpose and dedication. These two things are most important. This can be understood from the scriptures and the saints. So if there's any doubt about that, check with the scriptures, check with the saints. If you see, I have a guru over here, I worship everything he says and does, but that's not really congruent with saints and scripture. Well, make a course correction. And if we concern ourselves with the purest and the highest sacrifice, the purest end and the highest sacrifice, the end will come of itself. We are not to bother for any remuneration. We have only to do our duty, and the remuneration will come. So Jesus Christ, he tells his followers, sell everything you have and give it to the poor and come and follow me. And his followers say, well, wait a minute, what are we going to do? How do we pay the rent? How do we pay the taxes? And Christ tells them, consider the lilies of the field. They neither spin nor sow. And yet, King Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of these. Look at the great kings of Egypt and Jerusalem 2,000 years ago with their gold raiments. And they did have 1,000 count Egyptian cotton, perfectly dyed in indigo and lapis lazuli. But their raiments could not compare with a flower. This is what Christ said 2,000 years ago. So look at the flowers. They're not working. They're happy. Look at the birds. The birds are singing. What kind of a house do they have? A house made out of straw, little twigs, and they have to live out in the rain. But every morning they're getting up before you do, and they're singing this beautiful song, a song that's imitated by pipers and flautists the world over. So Christ is saying, don't worry about the petty things. They'll take care of themselves. Do your surrender. It will work. Have faith. Om, it means yes, a big yes. Don't worry. Krishna says, Masucha, you know, Sarvadharma Parityajya, Mame Kam Sharanam Braja, Mashucha. Don't worry, it will come. We are not to bother for any remuneration. So we don't do Krishna consciousness uh, to raise money. We don't tell people, um, you want success in life? Uh, be Krishna conscious, attend our seminar. Uh, only $1,000 for an intensive, and we'll teach you how to be successful. No, this is not really our line. We are not to bother for any remuneration. What a thing to say. Try it. We have only to do our duty, and the remuneration will come. So discover what is your bliss, what is your dharma, who are you, how can you balance your life in Krishna consciousness, and you'll be okay. To whom we will dedicate ourselves, and what we shall receive, these things should be discussed, thought out, meditated upon, and put into practice. In this way, we must try to live in the infinite. We must always stay engaged in the cultivation of infinite love and infinite beauty as recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Wow. I love this book. It's a great book. I recommend it. It's called The Loving Search for the Lost Servant. And as I said before, Sri Rama, he's he's putting out some very dense ideas that can use a little bit of oh, thought, meditation, contemplation. What is sacrifice? How do I sacrifice? How do I sacrifice myself for the infinite? How do I throw myself desperately into the infinite? These are things, he says, which should be discussed, thought out, meditated upon, and put into practice. And it may be that it doesn't work. It may be that you try all that and it's an immense failure, but at least you tried. As Srila Prabhupada would say, um, if you're going to hunt, go for the rhinoceros. This way, if you miss, people will say, well, you know, he was hunting the rhinoceros. And if you manage to hunt the rhinoceros, people will say he hunted the rhinoceros. The great spiritual author of Russia, Ukraine, and maybe modern history, uh, Fyodor Dostoevsky. He tried again and again to pinpoint something deep within the human soul. And he created different characters in his great novels. For example, Prince Mishkin in his book, The Idiot, where he shows that if you try to be Christ like, you're an idiot. That's who you are. A Christ like man, he's an idiot. Uh, but that book wasn't completely successful, so he tried again with Crime and Punishment to prove that beauty will save the world, was his idea there. And in the Brothers Karamazov, he considers the dichotomy between faith and organized religion in his story, The Grand Inquisitor, which is a debate between Alyosha and Ivan, the atheist. Uh, so he wrote all these great works, but he said, you know, I'm disappointed. I just read El Quixote in Spanish, and I'm disappointed in my work because I could never, ever uh, top, uh, surpass Don Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra, the author of the Quixote. And they said, but why? Why do you say that? He said, well, the Quixote is a man who has the highest ideal. He wants to reestablish the golden age. And yet he's a failure. But he never loses hope. He never loses faith in his high ideal. And Srila Sridhar has pointed out that we're driven by the high ideal, just like the Quixote. He's tilting at windmills. It's a perhaps a useless endeavor, maybe, but at least he has a high ideal. And it's better to have a high ideal than to have no ideal. Anyways, that's what Dostoevsky thought. It's an interesting point. Albert Camus gives us the myth of Sisyphus, and he says it's better to have no ideal. Just continue plodding along, moving that rock up the hill, and try to be happy with it. It's a happy rock. But our point is different. So Srila Sridhar says, in this way, we must try to live in the infinite. We must always stay engaged in the cultivation of infinite love and infinite beauty as recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's as good as I can give today, Sunday, June 28th, 2026, here from the secure, undisclosed location deep in the heart of Mexico. This is Mahayogi saying, adios, boys and girls. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Mahayogi.
I have to go. I don't know. Any comments, questions, challenge? Challenge.
Just one little question.
Yeah.
Regarding, like sacrifice. There's a couple of words, right? Sacrifice, we have yagya, right, in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
And we also have tapasya, which can also mean sacrifice, as opposed to penance. If we look at tapasya and yagya, they're very, very close, aren't they? Or are they not?
Tapasya, very good. That's penance. But that's maybe, penance is part of sacrifice. It's enfolded into it. Like in the church, you have the sacraments. Lent, that's supposed to be penance, right? Here in Mexico, they have the penitentes, where people will carry a cross made out of thorns and drag it through the street. Or the Muslims, they have a system of beating themselves with razor blades on their neck.
Yes.
Right? Or you could wear a hair shirt. So what's the idea? Mortify the flesh. Okay. Well, that might be a kind of sacrifice. But then again, see, Bhagavad Gita talks about sacrifice in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, right? That's,
okay. But we're told that our service, our devotional services, are sacrifices. It's a yagya. Chanting the Hari Nam is a yagya. Doing your puja is a yagya. Right? Yeah. So these are sacrifices. Do you get me?
Right. So according to the level of sacrifice and what you're trying to get and what you're trying to give, there's some gradation, right? I'm trying to find where it's interesting. Kṛṣṇa mentioned,
I've just heard these two words cross over the years by various people. Even Srila Guru Maharaj crosses them over. So you didn't cross them over. You split between sacrifice and like you said with sacrifice, you didn't mention yagya. So, or tapasya. So,
Oh, but at the beginning of the talk here, we were describing from the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna talks about jagya.
right, okay.
Maybe I didn't say that, but yeah.
No, it's interesting because I think they do cross over. They do. It can mean one and the same, even though they are different.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, jagya shishtashina santo muchante sarvakilbashai. You know, the devotees are freed from sin because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. But yeah, jagya, it's a name also for Vishnu. It's in the Vishnu Sahasranam. There's 1,000 names of Vishnu. Jagya, or sacrifice, is one of them. Tapasya, I normally think of that as austerity, but penance, austerity and penance are very close together. The idea is normally you perform penance to absolve yourself of some sin.
Right, like chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. That's what Prabhupada told us.
But the idea of penance is this is sort of a punishment that's been imposed. So we don't like to think of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra as a kind of punishment. And normally penance is something that you do to get a result. For example, to be absolved of sin. But for example, Hiranyakashipu, right? He performed penance and austerity to control the world. And there's a number of different demons in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad. Bali Maharaj is another, who perform. They would stand on one foot until fire came out of their head, and the demigods realized, oh my goodness, this man is a serious yogi. Or penance is performed in yoga, tapasya, with the idea of gaining some kind of a siddhi or perfection or power. But yeah, I guess you can look at it like that. Refraining from meat eating, from
Yeah.
fish, don't eat meat, fish, eggs, intoxication, gambling, illicit sex. That can be considered penance or sacrifice. It can swing either way. Sure, why not?
Yeah, it's just that like we've heard so much about yagya over the years, but we don't hear much about the word sacrifice. So it's just a different level. Again, it's coming from Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and he talks about sacrifice where, Prabhupada talked more about, let's say, penance. It's just
Well,
it's just
shaving your
taking
head,
the concept a bit higher.
for example, shaving your head, that's tapasya. Getting up at
Okay.
4 o'clock in the morning, that's tapasya. It means,
Okay.
you're mortifying the flesh, you're mortifying you're doing, it's taking a cold shower. You're doing these things as part of a sort of yoga regime or sadhana to help
Or
control.
hardship.
Eh?
Or hardship. Cold showers are hardship from one perspective.
Yeah, hardships. That's right. Penance, tapasya. It's hardship, but the idea, why do that? Well, you're restricting yourself from certain things to be able to focus better, right? So, say you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and take a cold shower. Well, now you're focused. Whereas if you wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning and take a hot shower and everybody's already outside working and partying and making a lot of noise, well, it's more easy to become distracted. So if you're living in an ashram, especially, uh, and you're trying to really focus and concentrate yourself on your spiritual practice, then a certain amount of tapasya is welcome. And if you're surrounded by a band of spiritual God brothers who are doing the same thing, you feel solidarity in your spiritual pursuit. So, to that end, tapasya is uh, kind of a healthy thing. On the other hand, there's people who cut themselves with a razor blade just to cut themselves, you know.
Yes, I mean, coming on from last week's talk, you mentioned that about too much renunciation makes you hard-hearted and bitter and not a nice person.
Yeah, so Krishna mentions in the Gita, you know, my brain is not as sharp as it once was. I might have been able to. If you look in the index of the Bhagavad Gita, there's about 100 entries on sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it talks
Sankirtan,
about the
Jagya.
sacrifice in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Sacrifice in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. But,
It's in the it's in the
I can't remember what
16th
section of the Gita that's in.
in the 16th chapter, I think.
16th chapter?
16th, if I remember right, 16th or 17th. Yeah, that's one of these two.
I feel terrible about that because, you know, I've read this again and again.
I can find it out. It's just my
I
computer.
like the description of the demons in here because it just sounds like your average American citizen. Those who would
No,
be
I'm sorry for pushing this. It's just like yagya and sacrifice and surrender and, dedication. They're all kind of similar, but they're different, and they all merge at some points to various degrees.
well, the different, you know, it's
So
again, it's
sacrifice becomes surrender. Surrender becomes something else.
right. It's strange for me to sit here and speak a lot of blah 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 words about abstract concepts, you know. So, what is sacrifice? What is surrender? What is
Yeah.
how are they different? But tapasya is a very practical thing. It means, for example, there's baseball players who won't shave their beard until they win the World Series because it's good
Right.
luck. You know, that's a form of tapasya.
Yes.
Or, you know, or you shave your beard all the time because, you know, you have to be clean for Kṛṣṇa. So that's a form. Bowing down is a form of tapasya. Can also be sacrifice. But the idea here about sacrifice is giving something, whereas tapasya may be done for the purpose
To
of
get.
getting.
Okay, got it. Now that's the big one. Okay. All right. So to give and to get.
Yeah, look up in the Sivasani. I'm going to give you some homework. Okay? You find in the Bhagavad Gita Sufasani where it talks about sacrifice in the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion and the mode of goodness. I can't do it right here in front of a camera and 10 people. You know, my brain is fried at this point. I'm an old man. I've lost most of my teeth and most of my friends. So you help us out and have that for next week, okay, Suvasini? All right. And if Madhusudan Maharaj, he's out there, I'm sure he knows. He'll point us in the right direction. I'm happy with the idea that in this age of Kali, the proper form of sacrifice is the holy name. Why would that be a
Okay.
sacrifice? Because you're giving up your time, you're giving up your energy, you may be alienating your friends. Uh, Tripurari Maharaj was on an airplane once, an old friend of mine, Tripurari Maharaj, was chanting his japa, and the guy next to him was annoyed. Some businessman, an insurance salesman from Poughkeepsie, Iowa. He turned to him and he said, uh, he said, why do you have to do that? What is it that makes you have to do that? And Tripurari Maharaj turned to him and he looked at him and he said, you, sir, you being who you are, that makes me have to do this. So if you're chanting Hare Krishna, some people won't like it. They'll go, what are you doing there? Why? Explain. Oh, you're not a Christian? Okay, fine. Explain. Oh, then we're all the same. We're all the same. It's the same God. So if you worship the same God that I worship, because it's only one God, then why don't you come to my church? Why don't you wear my hat? Take off that hat. Wear the hat that we're all wearing. Be a Catholic, be a Christian, be a Protestant, And then you have to say, well, no, it's not really. Oh, yeah, explain it to me. Why? The what? The Bhagavad what? The guru? You have a guru? Ew. I'm going to report you. This is religious tolerance. But anyways, I think Suvasini already found out. I can see she's thinking.
I'm sure she did.
Actually, I have got it here. I can read a couple of verses. It says, if you have time, there's only 2 verses I can read. That sacrifice which is in accordance with the scriptural injunctions and faithfully performed by a person free from fruitive desire is sacrifice of the nature of goodness. But, O Bharata, know that sacrifice which is performed in fruitive expectation and as a display of pomp and grandeur is a sacrifice of the nature of passion.
What shloka or where is that?
It's in the 17th chapter and the verse is 11 and 12 I just read. Yes.
Yeah, 17th chapter. Here we are. Yeah, for example, here Krishna says faith can be of 3 kinds, right? Sri Bhagavan Uracha Trivida Bhavati Shraddha Dehinam Sa Svabhavaja. Says according to the modes of nature, one's faith can be of 3 kinds, Sattva, Raja, Tama. So he says Sattvanu Rupa Sarvasya Shraddha Bhavati Bharata. He says according to your existence under the 3 modes of nature, you have a particular kind of faith. And then he says, those in the mode of goodness worship the gods. In the mode of passion, they worship the demons. In the mode of ignorance, they worship ghosts and spirits. So what's that all about? What is the difference between worshiping demons and ghosts and spirits? Well, for example, the World Cup is on. People worship these athletes who can kick a ball. Well, that's a little more active. That's a little more passionate than worshiping ghosts. And so on. This is called the divisions of faith. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. The 17th chapter. Here we are. Very good. Thank you, Subhasini. It says here, the 11th text. It says, Avala kumshibir jagyo vidi drishto ya ijyate. So the kind of jagya, sacrifice performed according to duty and to scriptural rules and with no expectation of reward is of the nature of goodness. Is that what you were saying? Yeah? Okay. Then he says, but that sacrifice, tan jagyam vidi rajasam, that sacrifice performed for material end or benefit or performed ostentatiously out of pride is of the nature of passion. Then vidi hinam asrishtana, mantram hinam adakshinam, shraddha virahitam jogyam tamasam parichakshate, that sacrifice performed in defiance of scriptural injunctions, in which no spiritual food is distributed, no hymns are chanted, and no remunerations made to the priests. That's what you were saying. And which is faithless, that sacrifice is in the mode of ignorance. Right? And then right after that, he describes tapa.
Okay.
Right? So if someone is, well, for example, my brother is a truck driver. He belonged to the Hells Angels. He used to be a motorcycle madman in California. And he didn't really belong to the Hells Angels. They wanted him, but in the end, you have to be initiated. And in their initiation ceremony, all the brothers in the Hells Angels with their leather jackets and whips and chains, they beat you half to death and then urinate on you. Okay? So this is a sacrifice, but this is a sacrifice in the mode of ignorance, involving beer, liquor, severe ignorance, right? Tapasya, Kṛṣṇa says, Deva Dvija Guru Pragya Pujanam Shocham Arjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsa Cha Shariram Tapa Uchite. He says, proper penance, austerity. The austerity of the body consists in this worship of the Supreme Lord, Deva Dvija Guru Pragya Pujana. So you worship the Lord, the Brahmins, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother. Then he says, cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence are also austerities of the body. So here, you've heard it said there's 4 pillars of religion. So here they are: brahmacharyam, ahimsa, shocham, and arjavam. Simplicity, cleanliness, brahmacharya, ahimsa, nonviolence. So these are the proper principles of tapa, right? So these are things Sridhar Maharshi said, well, this should be considered, this should be discussed, should be meditated on. Austerity of speech, this is good, Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially and avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. So that's difficult. Just speak sweetly, speak truthfully, avoid the speech that offends. So if your wife asks you, does this dress make me look fat? Do you speak truthfully? Yes. You speak the speech that doesn't offend? Oh, of course not. Avoid speech that offends. Speak sweetly. Actually, honey, I think the red dress is really the one for you. That's really you. Yes, but does this dress make me look fat? Fat is a relative consideration. Anyways, I'm very happy to see all of you, and Tapanandini and Adwai Kṛṣṇa and Tungarasa Dasi and Hari Priya, and as always, Nazar from Ukraine. I visited in Kiev. They have this archaeological museum. Archaeological? No, it's archaeological. No, it's an architectural museum, right? Where they have examples of homes built in Ukraine from like 500 AD to the year 2000. So you walk through a field and you'll see here's a home that might have belonged to somebody in the 500s, and here's how they made bread and so on. It was really a wonderful experience. I loved my time there in Ukraine. Entonces, as we say in Mexico, adios y nos vemos pronto. We'll see you all soon. Hare Krishna.
Hasta la vista, Dandavats.
Hasta la vista, baby. We'll see you soon.
You'll be back.
Peace.